Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. I regret to inform everyone our Kickstarter for the GLORIO Tube has been canceled for reasons I can't legally discuss.
Who could have seen this coming?
But I did want to mention our new project. We're going to be doing a stage play.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's good. I can't announce too many details yet, but it'll be based on a popular children's anime, and I may have some controversial political views.
Some extremely right-wing political views that you wish to inject into this children's stage play.
Yeah. Are you telling me that a stage play based on a children's show is the perfect vector in which to communicate one's political ideologies?
There's plenty of Kamen Rider stage shows, folks. I mean.
This is another joke that's going to age great. It's actually probably already
aged out.
It's already
wants to talk about
let's be real.
Whatever, man. This is the most mainstream Digimon has been in, let's say, 20 years.
Yeah. If anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, is the Digimon Tamers 20th anniversary stage play, I guess, that they did.
A live script reading
in which the writer decided to make cancel culture and political correctness like personified as the villains of amongst other things injected into there.
It's just so sad, like this crazy old man only has this fucking children's TV show script to express his political opinions through. It's just it's really something, put it that way.
And it continues to be the thing of largely, influential member of the media complains about cancel culture, but still managed to get his message included in a live stage reading that was broadcast to probably thousands of people,
and which a bunch of people paid money to attend in person in these times. Think about that for a second.
So it's most of the people who complain about cancel culture are rarely ever actually getting canceled, and in fact are often getting book deals out of the whole affair. So,
well, let's put it this way: it may be a reason why Chiaki J. Kanaka, the writer in question, has not worked on anything for, let's say, quite a few years now. Yeah. So,
and it's worth pointing out he's done other pretty well-known works besides Digimon Tamers.
I would say Serial Experiment Lane is his standout work.
Right, really. And as a mecha fan over here, I'm just grieving the reality of this man being responsible for Big O, which
I think it's fair to say that most of the grieving happened when Big O Season 2 happened, so,
parts of Season 2 were decent. I think that, they did something. We can't get into this now, because we don't have time for it, but there are aspects of Season 2 that I do like, but I get where you're coming from.
Well, anyway, yeah, I think I got nothing else on that joke.
I don't know. I guess it's just
it's incredibly funny.
Yes, I mean, as we were discussing before recording, it is incredibly ironic and tragic that the man who literally wrote a story about the dangers of being too online for your own good would end up being the person who is out there espousing absurd conspiracy theories and right-wing talking points.
Yeah. Right. There were other signs before this that he was into this.
He was always a conspiracy.
Right. I mean, it's more that he literally lived long enough to see himself become the villain.
I mean, I will just say what I said on Twitter, which is Kanaka was a notable fan of the Cthulhu mythos, and he finally achieved his dream. He became H.P. Lovecraft himself, complete with extremely dubious personal politics. So,
All right.
Anyway, let's let that die and move on with our lives. Hi, everyone. Let's start over. Reboot here. We're going to talk about some anime. We're almost halfway through the season already, the summer season.
Yeah, we're looking at episode 6 of stuff already.
Yeah, we're still talking about things. I don't know how I would gauge my enjoyment level but we're still talking about things. So, I think we have enough shows left, and we'll talk a little bit about the backlog things that we've been hinting at as well. So, let's get into it and introduce everybody. I'm Jel. I'm joined by Iro.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
Still with us. Joined by G.
What's good, everybody?
And and we're joined by Zig.
Hello, hello. Last time I wasn't here because I was watching England do what they do best: lose.
Oh yes.
Well, now that's old news. Like, we're joking about.
Oh yeah, that's
like...
ancient history.
We
England
made it
has lost in a magnificent variety of other ways since then.
Yeah, we made a joke about that last time already being not relevant by the time we.
Right. I mean, if you just say the words out loud, the tremendous English boondoggle, it's like, well,
Which
one?
Yes.
The United States of America.
All right. Let's. I mean, we've gone so far off the rails already.
Yeah, we're taking at swings at things that aren't even remotely anime related. So
yes, let's get back around to some anime things we're still watching here, and let's talk about To Your Eternity.
The Adventures of Fushi on Crime Island.
Is it just me? Like, is there something wrong with me? Or like, I do not like this.
No, I think
it's bad.
No, okay, no, that's not true. I think the issue, in some regards is, I don't know, Eero, maybe you can like back me up here. Is that I think a lot of To Your Eternity's style of storytelling maybe just isn't that well suited for like the animated format.
Right.
Like, I think a lot
spoke about this last podcast.
Yeah. Like, I think a lot of the ways in which it's paced and, like, in the way in which characters introduce themselves and speak is just, like... I think it's just better suited for a page-to-page format. I think when it is taken to anime form, and you know... And I think I don't think there's no such thing as something that is completely unadaptable, but I think that certain works require a more deft hand or a more competent execution, and...
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you know, Brain's Base is not really getting it done on the adaptation side of things, and I think that is why maybe because I do think that there are many things that, you know, look, Crime Island is there are aspects of this arc that even in the manga kind of feel like weird and incongruous based on like what, you know, your expectations are for To Your Eternity. But I do think that it finishes strong, and I do think that its introduction of like certain characters are important to the overall story that To Your Eternity is trying to tell. But
yeah,
it definitely has its pitfalls, and I think those pitfalls are only exacerbated by the Brains Base adaptation, which definitely is kind of stilted in some like pretty major areas.
Yeah.
So can I counter that by saying why I don't think it's the adaptation, even though I have not read the manga?
Yeah, by all means.
Okay, so my fundamental problem with this arc, and I'm gradually growing to understand that it's a fundamental problem with the way the show and the story is structured, I don't care about any of these people because they're just going to die. Like, that's being deliberately reductive, but I don't see any path for these people to successfully, not necessarily escape, but have their plot resolved by anything other than these people will die horribly and Fushi will learn a lesson about mortality. You know, and I think that was kind of a problem with the Gugu arc, and I think it's an even bigger problem here because there are more characters, which means they cannot be as focused on any individual character, and therefore I care about them less.
Sure. I mean,
so let me just I'm gonna put a permutation on that where I kind of get where you're coming from, Zig. I don't know if I would make that broad of a statement that I don't care about them at all because they're gonna die, but I do feel like the way the show has been formatted to where we've introduced the knockers and that's the main plot now, that some of the key characters are kind of reduced to shonen power-ups for Fushi instead of people. like even the ones that he currently has, like they're like, it feels like that we're almost killing them off for the sake of powering up Fushi, because that's what the story is demanding.
Where you're coming from.
And it does kind of cheapen the whole thing for me. I just in general, because if we go back to the Gugu arc, I actually liked all of the Gugu arc up until the ending, and that felt to me like the ideal, or at least my ideal of what I felt like To Your Eternity was going to be, where it was like Fushi organically over time learning about humanity, both good and bad, in a like a, you know, I guess I was expecting it to be more of like a slow burn type of thing than, you know, and in that was the one part of the story where we actually got like a gap of several years over time, right? Everything else has been kind of, you know, bang, bang, bang. And now it just feels like I said, it's almost like a shonen power up thing where he's got to now, where the focus is now, we must make Fushi stronger to fight the fight the knockers. And then, you know, we get to this block of episodes ending with the return of Hayase,
everybody's favorite,
as like this cartoon villain now, who is like, I just it does not feel like the show I signed up for. Let's put it that way.
Based on the first episode, I understand. Eero, you understand where I'm coming from, where I feel like I'm like choking up my tongue here, because like I feel like I don't know what I can say without revealing my hand.
Context for the story, I guess.
But I guess the thing I will say,
card to play, I suppose.
Yeah, and I don't want to act like, oh, just because we know what's happening, that justifies the the low points. Now, I guess the thing I will say is, I think your concerns about the way the characters have been introduced, especially because March and Gugu are right after each other, and they kind of both follow a similar trajectory. I think that is an understandable concern. I will say, the conclusion of Crime Island, I know it has an actual name. I just call it Crime Island. It does some things different. I will say this, like this is the beginning of like a new status quo. Things will change by the end of this arc. Fushi and his motivations will dramatically change like after this arc in some pretty important ways, and I could definitely see that, like, watching it in anime form, it kind of gets dragged out, right? Like in hindsight, you know, Eero, you and I, you know, the way we read manga, we probably like got through these 3 arcs in like 2 sittings.
I was reading it while it was coming out.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. I guess I read it a little bit later, but you know what I mean, right? Of like, the nature of how one can like read manga can like in some ways like alleviate some issues with its pacing. And
yeah, because I mean we're 16 episodes in here. Like,
right.
if you're gonna play your hand, I would hope you would play your hand.
Yeah,
somewhere within
fair,
the 16
that
episodes.
I will say that I think this arc is important because it does introduce the idea of people or a world as a whole beginning to recognize Fushi for what he is. You're beginning to see this, right, in terms of like. Yeah. Outsiders, third parties are beginning to slowly internalize his rule sets. Like, this is no longer just like a one-off like phenomenon. This is a thing that people are recognizing.
Right, Hayase is able to recognize that by killing Perona, Fushi will take that form. Yeah,
like that's the thing, right? Like Hayase specifically kills Perona because she knows that Fushi will be able to take her form, right?
That has not been communicated very well up to this point, though.
She literally said that.
Yeah,
she says that in the Coliseum. But
she says it, but like I didn't necessarily get the intent that that's why she did it.
Well,
she literally looks at the camera and says, "Do you like the gift I gave you, Fushi?"
Yeah, she says that was my gift to you. Yeah,
right. Like you think it's like, I mean, Hayase is like, for better or worse, very clearly trying to signal the like, you know, obsessive yandere style villain like antagonist, right? Who is like infatuated and obsessed with Fushi, and like, so like, you know, I guess, you know, as a manga reader, maybe that it just read more clearly, but I do think I think they did an okay job of communicating that like she is doing these villainous acts out of a very, very misguided obsession with Fushi. And she's not the only character. Like, Tonari has not really played her hand yet either, but you know, you will begin to see her as well, also beginning to internalize Fushi's quote unquote rule sets and like how to work with those. And I think that will like pay dividends in the future. I guess the question is, with only 4 episodes left,
right,
will they be able to pay off on that?
Right,
that
because like you and I, we look at the manga and go, "This is where you end it." Yes. And before the show started, we were like, "Oh yeah, 20 episodes, they can get it."
Yeah,
and then, but as we are now in the present, we look at it and you're like, can they get there in the time allotted?
I begin to grow a little
the pacing,
concerned.
right?
I almost begin to wonder if To Your Eternity should have just been a two-course show, because we're now rapidly approaching. Okay, to not to spoil it, but we are rapidly approaching a Maid in Abyss Bondrewd situation where there is an extremely thematically important endpoint for in which an anime could end, and it just simply does not have enough episodes to hit that, and then the worry becomes, well, then how will they decide to end it if not in the most thematically appropriate place?
Yeah.
So can I respond to that response then?
Sure.
So I think that the points you've made are good and they're encouraging, and as somebody who is obviously committed to seeing the show through to its end now, I think I'm happy to hear that they have an idea and a concept of where they're going. I think that is reassuring regarding the macro level look at the show. But I still think that there are issues with the micro level, which is, namely, there's a lot of characters. Most of them are not really very developed or likable. And, I would say my favourite character at the moment is Pioran, who hasn't appeared much in, 5 or 6 episodes. I don't really have a firm grasp on any of the island kids at all, except main girl, what's her name?
Tanari.
I really don't like her.
Yeah, I don't really like her either.
Tanari.
She feels like she stepped sideways
hustling.
out of a completely different anime. And, I think... I don't think that the character storytelling in the Gugu arc was fantastic either, but I do think that they pulled it together for an excellent ending. You see, Joe, I'm the opposite. I actually didn't like most of the Gugu arc, but I thought the ending was really good. So, we're kind of on opposite ends there.
I don't like that they just decided to blow the whole thing up with the knockers and bring all that stuff in.
It was a little abrupt.
If you're going to go that route, I think they handled it well, but I don't think in general they should have gone that route. But how they actually handled it, I think was fine.
And just I think, with Gugu, we gained an appreciation for him, partially because we spent a lot of time in his company, and I think his story was a little hackneyed because it is essentially just what if all the miserable shit in the world happened to one boy, but but we did grow affectionate to him, and he's the ending where he sacrifices himself for the girl he loves is a genuinely heroic moment, and I don't really feel that attachment to any of the characters currently. Even Fushi is kind of he's still not articulate or nuanced enough for me to be really invested in his personal arc, so to speak. And so
I don't know,
think
he finally wanted to kill someone,
but
so
now
he's
he
getting
wants
there.
no, that's an
revenge.
interesting
Yeah.
development.
He's
That
getting there.
is an interesting development. But he's still a little too childlike for me to sort of carry the burden of the show on his own shoulders. And I've got no fears that the show will be a disaster. I think it will be good. But there's something that's not quite clicking.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm at. Where it's I'm not gonna say it's bad, but it feels like, to me, it is not hitting its ceiling or something, or this doesn't feel like the ideal version of what I think this show is gonna be. And maybe that's just my personal opinion, but it's it just doesn't feel like the thing I was expecting it to be. But as far as, I mean, I guess you guys know how it's gonna wrap up, but I don't know what they could do really to change my mind at this point, because like I said, we've gone a season and a half now.
I think that's fair. The last thing I guess I will say then is, if it does end where Iro, and I think it has to end, if it can somehow make it to that point, just thinking about that part in the manga fucks me up. Just thinking about it, there is an emotional climax that I hope they arrive at. I really do, because I think in some ways it is the emotional climax
highlight,
that Iro and I keep alluding to is almost feels like, oh, the manga could have just ended right there. Like, it feels like, oh, this is like as far as the writer like originally plotted out, because this is the perfect like culmination of the past 3 arcs coming together. And I guess it's just that the payoff is very, I think that, I think if the adaptation can stick the landing, it's a very good emotional payoff. I guess the question that continues to haunt Iro and I is
when
just,
they get there, like,
right, can they even get there? It's
Yeah.
It's a little tight. They don't have that many episodes left, Like, we got 4 episodes left to conclude Crime Island and at least one other small arc, and then
I don't know.
denouement that
I don't know.
yeah, it's a little tough.
I guess so long as they don't pull a Promise Neverland, then it'll be fine. All right, we need to move on.
oh boy,
you guys are still watching D-Side Traumerei.
For some reason,
the animation.
Hell yes, we are.
As somebody who only has experienced this show through your podcast updates, it has been very entertaining.
Well, I got good news for you, Zig, because the thing we're beginning to realize about D-Side Traumerei. So last week we called it trashy Persona.
it still is.
It still is, and the thing that like makes it really trashy is like, oh, this is a show like where it is on the razor's edge between like, oh, this anime is genuinely trying to address real grievances about society and culture, and just using those grievances as the most like gratuitous set dressing imaginable.
Yeah.
So what was the after school special?
Okay, so for these 2 episodes, the first of the 2 gets
It's all
into
coming back to me.
Rollerblade Kid's backstory. The little kid with the cool rollerblade like fighting ability.
Ice
skates. So it turns out that he's got some problems in his home life. What a surprise. And it's that his mom has like
an unspecified illness,
unspecified suicidal depression.
Yep. They handle this with the subtlety of
a brick to the face.
Yeah, of throwing a brick through your window with a note on it that says, "Have you thought about suicide lately? This problem that lots of people are facing?" And I'm like, "Yes, in fact, you're not helping." It's like
it's so much.
The episode literally opens with him like wrestling pills away from her, like.
Oh,
no, I thought he was trying to wrestle pills into her because she wasn't taking her meds.
Was it that? I thought it was opposite.
Oh, you think she was trying to overdose on sleeping pills?
That's
oh
what
my
I
god.
thought.
Okay, you're probably right. Yeah.
You see, it's a masterpiece of ambiguity.
I don't think either one of those is a great direction to go with that, but sure.
And so like that's the reveal for like, oh man, Aruto's got a tough home life, right? And like that's why he's like so standoffish and independent, because like apparently his dad is still in the equation. His dad is like so weirdly generic, like he's just a generic salary man, and he just like occasionally chimes in with, thanks for taking care of mom, kid. Anyways, I gotta go to work. It's like, excuse me? Your wife just tried to stick her head under a fucking train track, like, and you're just here being like, well, I gotta go to work. Like,
it's so
it's all on Aruto to be the sole breadwinner of the house, take care of his mom, and like cook the meals,
and also go fight monsters.
So he's like really stressed out because he has all this fucking like baggage on him, and like.
So how do they punch depression in the face?
Well, so
here?
the villain of that arc is a salary man with suicidal depression, and like.
Wait, so both the good guys and the bad guys have depression? I mean, points for realism, but come on.
Well, it's more like, because it's the Persona setup of like every week is a new like hapless victim, who gets like seduced by the shadow powers,
and like it makes their emotions run out of control, which spawns the monsters.
Like the monsters are powered by emotional discord.
By Traumerei.
The Traumerei.
Right, they yell, "You're not me," and the monster comes out.
Yes, that's literally what it is. And so they try to stop the salaryman from killing himself because his suicidal ideation is just feeding the monster of the week. And, like, again, this episode, unbelievably trashy, extremely insensitive portrayal of depression. But then the dude says, like, straight up, like, some line about how deep down he doesn't even want to kill himself because that would take too much work. And it suddenly is, like, actually the realest fucking, like,
right, when he's like,
statement about suicide that I've maybe ever heard in a piece of
when
fiction.
it's like, you know, it's not even that you want to kill yourself, because wouldn't that just take too much energy? It's more like you just want to disappear instead.
Right.
And I'm like, well, yes, that is what it's like. This is not the show to try to examine this.
No, it's trying to address this in, like,
way.
22 minutes.
Right.
But...
And he's like, well, how about you stop by the kickboxing gym and just punch the bags for a while? And it's like, you have 20 minutes!
You know,
Don't be doing this!
And that is the absurd thing about the show, right? It just occasionally has these, like, tiny glimpses into human behavior that are, like, surprisingly nuanced, but they're packed in between just these utterly absurd, deeply insensitive portrayals of, like, human problems. And
so I guess the question I have is, which direction would you rather it go? Would you rather it actually try and be about, like, sensitive, real human emotions, or would you just prefer that they cut that stuff and just go full trash all the time? Because
I don't know.
There's value in being all trashy all the time.
So here's the thing. Here is one conclusion I did arrive to answer your question, Zig, about D-Side, and the reason why I think we're still watching it is because Persona has never had a good anime adaptation. And I'm not saying that D-Side is good, but it is an anime take on Persona that feels like it understands the medium it exists in. That
I mean, it helps that it is, you know, it is a story first rather than a video
that
game
it
first.
is a show that understands that it does not have 20 hours to develop a character. So it is going to operate in the absolute broadest, like, characterization swaths.
And the next episode after that was about...
Oh, man.
I mean, this is from Sanzingen, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, like, one of the things
multimedia attached to a upcoming mobile game.
Yeah, one of the things I asked off air was, like, the way you guys were talking about this reminded me a little bit of their most famous and loved work, Babuki Buranki, which was not necessarily good in the traditional sense, but had like the same sort of irrepressible energy as, say, a burning car flying through the air and smashing into a row of
I would
shops.
argue Babuki Buranki was like all trash all the time, with the occasional dip into, well, this suddenly got serious, but because it was rooted in the this is wacky mech stuff, like it worked fun. It worked okay there.
It was also fairly self-aware,
right.
I will say.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next episode, D-Side Traumerei, opens
so the next episode
with...
of D-Side Traumerei is basically...
Is it the Statue of Liberty girl's turn?
No. Hers is next week. They skipped her
It's a
this week
one-off.
to address... Ira, we were talking about this last night. This episode is basically... Polnareff's backstory from part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure,
It opens...
skewed through the lens of this extremely trashy Persona ripoff.
The quote-unquote villain of this episode sought out the magic monster candy, because his sister was raped and murdered by a criminal, and that criminal got a mere 15-year sentence, and
that's not good enough.
That's not good enough.
Only murder, only extrajudicial murder can give me the true justice that I seek.
And so the characters literally like see this new story on the Jumbotron and look at the camera and go, dang, Japan sure is lenient on its criminals.
Yes, they literally look at the camera and say, Japan, famously soft on crime. And the American girl there literally says, in America, we would have put a 9mm between his eyes. And acts as if that is like some heroic statement about the character of American people.
I mean,
and
look,
like,
even a stopped clock is right twice a day, okay?
I mean...
Okay, so here's the thing. So we were discussing this while watching the show, and, like, you know, at the end of the day, like, you know, in every society, in every civilization, the concept of justice has always basically fallen into two camps, right? Does justice exist to punish evil or to reform villains, right? And a society's decision on what justice is meant to do often affects how its like criminal justice system operates, right?
Indeed, yeah.
And so there's an argument to be made that like, you know, maybe this rapist murderer should get 15 years and should be given a chance to atone, right? But I think it is a very I think that's a very difficult thing to say. I mean, I think that's an easy thing to say when you are like clinically separated from the situation, but when you are the victim, I think that is a much more difficult like conclusion to arrive at, right? And I think that can be a legitimately ambiguous argument to have. The problem is
it requires nuance.
Right,
and this show has none.
Right, but I will say the like one nuanced part of this episode, because there's always it has to be one in Decent Traumerei apparently, is that they talk about how not only does the family of the victim have to deal with that happening to their family member, but they also have to deal with like the paparazzi.
Yes.
Constantly asking what they think about everything and what do they think about this 15-year sentence, and how like that's really getting to him of how he wants to not deal with it, but
right. Like
being
it's a
forced
show that
to confront it over and over and over.
Yeah, like it's a show that weirdly understands that like victims of crimes often suffer twice, right? They suffer the crime itself, and then they suffer in the often like deeply insensitive fallout from like society as a whole. And it's like, again, show has this weird understanding of like things that belie its otherwise extremely trashy, insensitive portrayal of
I
other
would like
topics.
to I would like also to say that like also this is a classic case of woman in refrigerator, which is never a particularly good look for media.
And so the problem is that like all this nuance gets thrown right out the window because the rapist murderer in question might as well actually be a JoJo villain, because he basically says the exact same things that Jay Guile said to Polnareff.
Right.
Does he have like the crazy eyes and the lolling tongue and everything?
Yeah, he has a tribal tattoo.
Right, so it's like guy.
Oh, so you're saying he's sick?
Yeah, basically. And he's like bragging about how much he likes raping and killing and how he can't wait to rape and kill more. Like, and it's like, it's just like it's just so like it's so fucking like two-dimensional.
See, that works in JoJo, where like the final objective is yes, we will kill the hell out of this guy.
Right? Like,
no, but then heroes fight the monster because like, no, you can't kill him. You'll just be a murderer yourself, man.
And it doesn't work because, again, yes, then the murderer says, "Ha, thanks for saving me, you fucking Boy Scout losers. Guess what? I am explicitly going to rape and murder more once I get out of jail." And the heroes just kind of stand there impotently being like, well, we gotta just let the justice system do its work, except because he's standing in like a pool of gasoline.
I was gonna say, what's the karmic accident
like,
which
flies
causes
into it
him
and sets
to...
him on fire, and all the heroes are like, "Whoa, that's crazy. Damn, well, we're not going to stop it.
We're not going to do anything once we watch this man burn alive in front of us. We're teenagers."
And it's just like...
It's the Batman, I don't have to save you.
Right. It's literally right. Like, it's literally, this is fine in JoJo because like that is a series that embraces the absurdity, the romanticness of its like, you know, of its characters, right? The grotesque nature of its storytelling, and I mean
like
that in the
people drop like flies in JoJo, like people die like constantly.
Like it is fun to watch Polnareff commit extrajudicial murder of his sister's killer because. That's the kind of show it is.
You see the line that occurs somewhere in the middle of part 4 where they start retiring instead of dying.
Yes. Well, look, Josuke's a good boy. Josuke's not a killer, all right? He will punch that man into a rock and
also,
leave him
like,
in a rock for the rest of his life, but...
Go ahead.
Also, like, they don't stop killing people after that point. They're just a bit more selective about who they kill.
Sure. And anyways, the point is, like, but that's the thing, right? Like, because this show tries to walk that line, its messaging does feel very confused, right? Because these heroes literally said, remember, at the beginning of this episode, one of the heroes literally said, "Man, 15 years is too little. Japan's so soft with criminals." And the American girl literally says, "If it were me, I would have killed that guy." And these same characters, about 15 minutes later, are saying, "No, don't commit extrajudicial murder," even though we literally advocated for it at the start of the episode. And if that's meant to be like a low-key dig at the heroes for, like... you know, being outsiders just making pithy statements and then being forced to back it up when they're actually forced to confront it. I don't think the show's going for that. I wish it did.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds a little subtle based on what you've been saying so far.
So the only part where it actually does come up a little bit is the main hero. So for a reminder, the main hero's brother was murdered in the street, just like straight up in the street, just like straight up like stabbed in the street and left to die. Right? He empathizes with the villain of the week. Right? He's like, look, dude, I know what it's like to watch someone you love get killed. And then the villain says, and so you're telling me that if the man who killed your brother was right here, right now, at your mercy, you wouldn't kill him? The hero legitimately pauses. He's like...
He doesn't have an answer.
He doesn't actually have an answer. And that is the one part where I'm like, oh, you heroes want to talk, but you don't actually, like...
Right.
You don't actually have the moral, like, backbone to back up your, like, convictions.
But, I mean, none of that is actually really going to get explored.
No, absolutely not.
So, like,
I mean, and again, they let that dude burn to death. Just saying. So murder by inaction is still murder.
Utterly confusing story. Utterly, like, just deeply, like, confused moral. The show just has deeply confusing morals, I think, at the end of the day. Like, I don't know what it's trying to do, but...
I think, based on what little I've watched... I think the priority is the cool fight scenes, and that's just trying to very like clumsily give it some kind of.
But it keeps trying. Like that's a thing.
Emotional context.
Like if we only had like 1 or 2 of these Saturday afternoon specials or after school specials or whatever, like we'd be like, oh, that's kind of weird. But hey, you know, like Persona did that a couple times.
And you'd be able to do it with like less. Absurdly.
Do they just have to, is it just like they need to be less explicit about it or something? Like, did they really like last time? Did they really need to show
so intense?
Yeah, you know that might also be it, right?
Did they really need to show the guy beating his wife on screen?
Oh my
constantly?
God, you're right.
Like,
because this episode, the rapist killer describes how he raped and killed the guy's sister, and it's literally being shown on screen.
Cool.
Yeah, see that's the thing. I mean, it's a bit touchy because like just because you're not showing it or describing in detail doesn't mean it's not happening, but I guess
just everything they've picked has been so much.
If you are gonna go down the road of being that explicit about it, you have to be able to take responsibility for bringing those things up, right? And I don't know if maybe creating a little more distance from it would help, or if that just makes it worse. I don't know, but
I don't know. Next week, it
girl's sounds like a mess,
and based on the preview, it looks like she's about to go John Wick someone in a warehouse. So, like, I don't know.
I guess we'll find out.
I guess we will relay to the rest of you how that goes.
Oh boy.
All right, let's keep moving.
Well, speaking of trash,
let's talk about Get a Robo arc and by extension all the other things you guys are watching. But we'll start there.
Arc continues to... I don't even know, like... I want to keep it on the podcast rotation, but I don't even know what...
There's nothing to talk about.
There's nothing new to say about it. It continues to, like, be a show where you can tell that its heart is in the right place, and it does have, like, a legitimate, like, vision of a super robot anime that it wants to realize, but it continues to be just utterly hamstrung by its production, by its resources, by its... everything. Just everything.
Is there anything specific that happened that was cool in the past 2 episodes?
Okay, so this is going to take some some lead up, but the latest episode did a thing that I don't know if it will actually pay off, but it got me interested. So the Traumerei Labs, which is basically just like the equivalent of Nerve headquarters in that it gets attacked by monsters every week, is being attacked by a newer, bigger monster that it just can't be stopped, and the heroes, the pilots of Get a Robo Arc, are away because they're on a secret mission elsewhere on the other side of the planet or something, and so they're not there.
The bottom of the ocean,
the headquarters, right? And there's some fun callbacks here. They introduce the Americans, and anybody who's familiar with Get a Robo knows that Get a Robo's portrayal of Americans is
very nuanced, very
extremely
very
funny.
Sympathetic.
Oh yes, the Americans who walk in on screen and talk about how they just can't stand the dirty Japanese. Just every single word that comes out of their mouth is just like the most blatant and hostile racism. Unfortunately, there's none of that this time because Zig, I don't know if you're gonna even remember this guy. You remember the blonde guy in Get a Robo Armageddon, like the racist American blonde guy?
Kind of like
he's in this show. And he's older though now because it takes place 20 years after.
Right,
like,
I was
the
going to
original
say
Getter Robo.
this is kind of a sequel to Armageddon, right?
Well, I mean, Armageddon is technically its own timeline, but yes, it is like in a sense like a sequel of sorts.
This is
right?
why
So,
I don't know anything about what's actually happening in
and
this
like
show.
he's an admiral now, and I guess the implication is he's chilled out a little bit. He says he just only hates most Japanese, but he respects Ryoma Nagare, so you know.
Sure.
You know.
I mean, is he just there to be the antagonistic authority figure? Or...
He's there to like help, but then he like doesn't do anything useful because like.
Is he there to sneak in an Armageddon cameo?
Kinda. He's just kind of there to like get his fleet destroyed to show the power of the new villains.
The thing is, like, even more so than like a lot of 70s properties, like Getter Robo has no definitive adaptation, or even really like an adaptation which is universally regarded as good. Therefore, pretty much every subsequent adaptation is an attempt at a reboot, and all that means is that you have about 10,000 different timelines at this point.
Yeah.
So,
and anyways, that's not actually the thing I got excited about, but it was just a neat cameo. But so everything's looking real bad, right? The monsters coming through the portal, they're about to reach Terminal Dogma, etc., etc., and then like. A new portal opens up, and through that portal shows up motherfucking Shin Getter Robo. Shin Getter Robo from Getter Robo Armageddon shows up, and just starts fucking, like, wrecking house here.
What?
I mean,
Wait,
it's still
what?
low budget as hell, but it's motherfucking Shin Getter Robo fucking shit up.
that's not something I expected to hear.
Right?
Like,
And it's like, I initially had to pop off because, like, oh fuck, it's Shin Getter Robo from the one Getter Robo I like. But the fun thing is that they kind of just show him in a dark silhouette, right? They don't really show the full mech. But every now and then, they show a glimpse of it. And I was like, there's something off about this Shin Getter Robo. Like, this is not the original Shin Getter design. And then they finally show him in the full light. And it's Shin Getter Robo Black. And for context, in Getter Robo Armageddon,
yes,
Getter
of
Robo
course.
Black
Shin Getter Robo
is
Black.
a custom version of Getter Robo 1 piloted by Ryoma Nagare during the post-apocalyptic section of Getter Robo Armageddon. And it has like a slightly different, edgier design. It has more spikes on it. It's colored
Well, of course,
black.
it's called Black, yeah.
And so
yeah.
it's like a Shin version. It's like a hybrid of Shin Getter Robo and Getter Robo Black. And I don't
it's
know if that
basically
actually...
Shin Getter Robo.
Yeah, and I don't know if that actually means anything. It could just be, oh, we want to sell a new toy. In fact, cynically, I suspect that's probably what it is. But, like, it's a weirdly specific callback to Getter Robo Armageddon that is, like, so specific that I'm like, huh, what are you doing with this? Like, what's your...
So do you
What's
think
your angle here?
do you think the end game here is some sort of like weird Crisis on Infinite Earths crossing the time streams thing,
I suspect,
or...
yes, that we are probably aiming for a, like, you know, Getter Robo pilots are like stands. They are they are just like, you know, supernaturally drawn to each other, right, across the universe. And
Isn't that like actually a canon thing? I can't remember.
yeah, it is because
Oh,
so
sure.
in the manga they explain. We don't have a lot of time, so I can't explain who Getter Emperor is. But Getter Emperor is sort of the, like, Spiral Apocalypse equivalent of the Getter Robo universe.
He's pretty cool.
Yeah, and Getter Emperor basically feeds off of the, like, Getter rays that are emitted by every Getter pilot, because every Getter Robo machine is kind of like a Getter ray force multiplier. The more pilots fight in Getter Robos, the more Getter rays are created, and the more it feeds this, like, Cthulhu-esque monstrosity that is Getter Emperor.
Like,
And-
just to chip in here for a second, like, this is, like, one of the fascinating things, which is, like, Getter Robo was this dumb kid show, and then gradually as the demographic has changed, they've sort of, like, strapped all this weird lore to it, and the net result is the kind of, like, weird lumbering colossus it is these days.
Yeah, it's like some Kirby lore shit of just, like...
Except
it is
Kirby
now
lore's
taken on-
never been important.
It takes this, like, strangely eldritch mythos tone to it that just feels completely at odds with, like, what it originally was, but...
I know,
like-
I got
like-
something to tell you about Getter Robo lore as well.
Except I'm watching these shows and it's nothing but cameos from old shots. I have no clue what's happening.
Because that's the market now, right? Like this, this show is exclusively designed for like sad
Armageddon
40-something
also, like-
people who like what? Yeah, that's the problem. Like 20 years ago,
Damn it.
that was also the only audience for Getter Robo.
We're just getting older.
So, you guys are also still watching Armageddon in tandem with this, right? How
Yeah.
how far along are you on that? Are you keeping like
About
the same
1-to-1,
pace?
1-to-1, yeah. So Armageddon continues to be fun, but again, it is like, we are still kind of in the early parts of the post Imagawa Get a Robo Armageddon. So it is a new status quo. It is this post-apocalyptic setting now. New characters from the original Imagawa arc are beginning to show up and explain what is going on.
Sure.
And it continues to just be a fun super robot romp. I would say that the moments that I'm personally waiting for are still on the horizon. They are still kind of setting things up. I think that, like I said last week, again, there's not that much new to say about Armageddon other than Armageddon is not that much better written than Arc, if we're being honest. It's just that it has a much better production going for it. And I think that, it is much easier to sell these kind of dumb, lumbering plot twists when you have,
Cool
actual
robot fights.
animation to back it up.
Yeah. That'll be interesting, Iro, because you'll be watching. You're seeing the characters in Arc first, and then I'm assuming that guy hasn't shown up in Armageddon yet. That was cameoing or whatever, or
I don't have
or any of this other
clue,
stuff.
dude.
Not quite.
Yeah.
I've had a few times where I've looked at a character in Arc versus character in Armageddon, and I'm like, is that supposed to be the same guy? Because they look completely different.
Yeah.
And then I'll look it up and go, I guess they are the same guy. Also, this says something about how the character Hitler was based off of Hitler. Okay, Get a Robo.
Is there actually a Hitler in Get a
Yes,
Robo?
there's a character named Hitler in Get a
Oh,
Robo.
with
Look,
like a
man,
D.
it's a 1970s shonen manga. You've got to battle Hitler at least.
Oh,
once.
yeah.
You have to fight Hitler once at least.
Oh, yeah,
yes,
for sure.
For sure. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, boy.
All right.
Something. So
I mean, Iro, are you enjoying it, or is this
I'm
more
just
of
letting
a
it wash over me, man.
just let it just let it happen?
No,
I am cultivating my key under this waterfall,
Are you?
of Get
Are
a
you?
Robo, just
Just meditating.
Yeah.
And,
Are we cultivating key now? Are we moving on to
Yeah, why don't we we'll take a I know you guys are watching a couple other things on the backlog we can hit up real quick here, but we've talked about Ninja Slayer. So again, are you guys just keeping pace with the season with these? 'Cause
Yeah,
you're
we're watching 2 episodes of Ninja Slayer a week.
Yeah, because Ninja Slayer
it's a half
so
episode anyway.
it's half episode, but it's also was 2 core, right? So
Yes.
if you watch 2 episodes every week, it would fill out the season, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And
So
I do think the primary thing I've been enjoying to watch Ninja Slayer is seeing the half step between Inferno Cop and Gridman for Amamiya, because half of episode 7 is just this almost no jokes. Ninja Slayer sits down with an old man and they talk for 6 minutes about life
Right.
or whatever, and I'm like,
Yeah,
this is not the comedy of what the show is. And
but
like-
knowing where Amamiya goes with his career next, seeing
Right.
scenes like this now in retrospect is actually really neat. It's like you just discovered the mixtape, the original mixtape of an artist who got big. It's
Right.
fun. It's really fun. And
Right.
also, I mean, it's just Ninja Slayer is legitimately super funny.
right,
and-
in the stupid shitpost Inferno Cop way that it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, the first half of episode 7 is about Ninja Slayer fighting a man who had the physical resilience to handle the snake arm transplant surgery, to transplant snakes onto his arms,
I
so
think
that he
I
could
remember
use
that.
snake ninjutsu on Ninja Slayer. And it's that's this show, dude. It's this just entirely unapologetic shitposting, and it's a lot of fun. And I wanted to say this until we had some time to get into it, but I think the thing that I can appreciate a lot more about Ninja Slayer in hindsight now is that now we know that Trigger made it in the long run. The thing that was always a little worrisome about Ninja Slayer when it first aired is that it aired right after Kill la Kill and Little Witch Academia, but also right around the time of Kisniver and Supernatural Battles, and Trigger was very much in this very uneasy place, right? As fans, right? It was uh-oh, is this all the studio has?
Right.
They spent the tank on Kill la Kill and Little Witch Academia, and they have nothing left. They have nothing else. They have no other stories to tell, right? And so at the time, I mean, this is why I think Aaron and I originally fell off Ninja Slayer, is like...
Right.
I recall our reaction to it being cool at the time.
Yeah, I think, it was like...
Yeah, and I personally watched half of it and fell off of it as well.
Right, and I think a lot of that is because a lot of us were desperate for the next Kill la Kill, right? Like Trigger was so hot right after that show, right? They could do no wrong, and so for the next follow-up to be, and it wasn't actually meant to be their next follow-up, but it was frameworked that way because it's the new show they had, being yet another like Inferno Cop flash animation like sketch comedy.
Yeah,
I mean, there's also just the fact that a joke is less funny when the second time you see it, and like fundamentally the Ninja Slayer joke is the same as the Inferno Cop joke,
right? And so like it was I think that at the time we weren't. It's a weird thing to say, but I think just like we weren't ready for Ninja Slayer at the time. Like we weren't ready to appreciate like its brand of humor, right? Because like we wanted something more. Not serious, but we wanted something better. Yeah, substantial. Yeah, like a Kill la Kill, And I think it's only in hindsight now that we're, post Promare, post Gridman, post Dynazenon even, that like we can look back now at this weird little project that Amamiya did before going on to make Gridman. And that's really fun, right? Because now it feels like a fun, like, indie garage band project, right? Like,
right.
Like, oh, they were just doing this to have a laugh, Like, all those good Trigger-style jokes you expect from them are in this show. And, like, even with its cheap animation, even with, like, its, like, non-existent budget, it still has that, like, undeniable Trigger sense of humor that's just, like, unbelievably charming to watch.
I think, in an interesting way, I think it might be the most authentically Trigger of that kind of... Because, like, the history of Trigger so far is kind of, like, divided into, that early surge and then kind of, like, this weird, difficult middle chapter and then kind of, like, the later stuff, Gridman and Dynazenon and stuff like that. And, I think there was definitely a fear for a while that kind of they... what Kisniver was written by Mari Okada, Supernatural Battles Become Commonplace was a work-for-hire thing, Space Patrol Luluko and
Ninja Slayer is also an adaptation, though, right? That's
right, but
yes.
yeah,
it is. I would argue Trigger has implanted. It is. I would argue Trigger has
right, but I mean there is some right.
You know what?
I mean there is some material it's based off of, though, right?
But kind of it felt like the studio was a little fragmentary during that time, and I think perhaps that might have been another one of the things which caused us to dismiss it out of hand.
I think so. Because I think that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense because like you had Kill la Kill, which is still I think very Imaishi, and it was like is Trigger just Imaishi or
right? Is it just a vehicle for him and
we also have to remember that like
they've proven since then that they have other talented people there that do different things.
This is also the time period in which it pains me to remind everybody of this, but this is also the time period in which we begin to realize that Yoshinari's star is fading, right? Like.
That he's not terribly good at directing. Like,
this is when he directs the Little Witch Academia TV series, right? Like, this is when we begin to realize,
I mean, that was almost 2 years after.
We cannot relitigate the history of Trigger.
Yeah, also, that was almost 2 years after Ninja
Fair
Slayer.
enough. It's I guess it's just like that whole period, right? It has that, like, feeling of, like, there's an unsureness to it, right?
Like I said, it was an awkward adolescence for the studio.
And I think a lot of it in hindsight is because Maishi went to directly do Promare right after Kill la Kill, so we didn't get a TV follow-up from him, right? Like, he went to a movie, which kept him, out of the spotlight for quite a few years.
I mean, I think as well, like, it was clear Kisniver was meant to be the studio's next great leap into doing something more serious and, drama-focused in an attempt to spread their wings. And, when that kind of foundered, then they sort of... they had Little Witch Academia, which, people have varying opinions to. It was... I don't think anybody thinks it was anything less than good, there was, Darling in the Franxx, which was, we know that A1 mostly led on that, but, definitely they leaned heavily on the Trigger name for that as well.
I mean, let's be real. As much as I am loath to admit it, Nishigori is, like... honorary Trigger
from
on some
the-
level.
yeah,
he
he's
is from that lineage. He was at
that
he was at
lineage,
Gynax,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
But the point is, I
Yeah.
think, because Ninja Slayer came out during that time, it was
Yes.
very easy to dismiss it.
Yeah,
and
totally.
again, fundamentally, and I don't mean this as a knock on the show, but it is Inferno Cop 2, basically.
yeah.
It's
No,
like
totally.
look at how
Yeah.
look at how many dumb jokes we can make with this hilariously limited
Right.
animation.
But yes, I do think that, yes, in hindsight, now that some time has passed, and we know that Trigger is now in this really sort of exciting place in its legacy. Going back to Ninja Slayer is just fun. I appreciate it so much more now. Like I really dig. I unironically dig a lot of what it's doing, and it's fun to see Amamiya try these things. Right, like it's why I say that I really hope that after Gridman crossed Dynazenon, I really hope that Amamiya is done with Gridman after this, because like
Yeah, I would like to see him
I can't wait to
branch
see
out.
what that I can't wait to see what
as
it
much
does
as
next.
I enjoy.
I agree,
Gridman.
but also Dynazenon was so different from what Gridman was. Like, if he
Right, but
seems
I
to
guess-
have
I
quite a
mean-
lot of room to play in
Yeah,
that.
I guess I
universe.
mean more that like I don't want him to become pigeonholed as like the Gridman, the Toku adaptation guy, right? Like, I was kind of talking about this a little while back, but like, I think that actually we were very lucky that Imaishi was never chained down by Gurren Lagann. That like Gurren Lagann did not like define the rest of Imaishi's career. Like, I don't think that anything Imaishi has made since Gurren Lagann is better than Gurren Lagann, but I'm glad that everything he has made since exists. Like, I'm glad he made
Yes,
Phantom Stalking.
I
I'm
mean,
glad he
Cannot-
made
I would
Kill
argue-
Kill.
Can I keep talking
Like-
about this? I'm sorry, we've drifted so far.
Yeah, we have a bit.
All right,
The only thing
point,
I would.
the point I was trying to make there is that, like, I just think for Amamiya's sake as well, I hope that, like, Gridman does not become, like, the sole defining thing about, his career as a director.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would like I agree, Zig. There's maybe some more room to explore that universe, but I would just like to see something entirely new now with his kind of talents. But yeah. All right. And I know you guys are still watching Thunderbolt Fantasy.
Yes, we are still watching
How's that
Thunderbolt
going?
Fantasy. I am enjoying it a lot. It's very tokusatsu adjacent to me.
Yeah.
When I will look at it, it's like the writing and storytelling of it is. If you look solely at what is happening, like it's pretty hackneyed and simple. But
I mean, it is written by noted tokusatsu writer Geno Ibuchi,
Yes.
so
Yes. and the presentation of it is very entertaining to me. Like it literally pulled the villain has all the heroes at his mercy, and then says, "I'll get you next time. You're no threat to me now. I'll just get you next time." And like, genuinely sold me on it. Right? I didn't even
Yes.
realize till like 20 minutes later. I was like, "Wait, he fucking did the I'll get you next time
thing.
bullshit."
No, it's like the thing that I think. So I've also really been loving Thunderbolt Fantasy a lot. It is it is a really fun experience, and I think for me, related to what Iro was saying, I think this show just has extremely good delivery. Like, in terms of like the dialogue and the things that are being said, like none of it is like necessarily revolutionary, but it is in the phrasing, like the off the cuff take I had is that Thunderbolt Fantasy has maybe the best vocabulary I've ever seen in a piece of fiction. Like, just its way with words, like the ways in which it adopts a very specific type of like over the top flowery language is just like extremely entertaining and perfectly fits its like wuxia milieu. And and yeah, it is stuff like the villain saying stuff like that. It's stuff like saying, we gotta go find, K Guy, the witch who is otherwise, the witch who is known as the Knight's Lament in, like, fucking, like, the Dark Forest
Night Demon Forest or something.
Night Demon Forest. Or
It sounds like
whatever,
they have a
right?
lot of good like kung fu movie names, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's what it is. It's a
Right.
lot of it's a
Screaming
lot of just
Phoenix Killer.
right, just straight up Ghostface killer shit. Yeah, just like it's really fun. It's really well done. The thing I'm really digging about it is just like, I think that the characters are all like relatively familiar archetypes, but because it is being shown in a slightly like it's a slightly different lens than what we're used to, right? Like this like
Puppets?
Taiwanese
Yes.
puppetry. But no, it's even just like the cultural tropes at play are slightly different from like, your average shonen anime. And that makes it really interesting. Like it makes it
Well, it seems to me like it's closer to a kung fu movie than anime.
yeah,
right?
it makes it super novel, honestly. It's
Right.
fun to watch and
But they're still doing fucking unlimited blade works and shit. Like,
oh yeah, totally.
How do they do unlimited blade works with puppets?
with their chi, man.
They're chi, yeah. Like
No, I mean physically, the practical effect of doing unlimited
I
blade.
mean, it's closer. It's closer to Gate of Babylon, right? Like they're more like summoning
Okay.
Yeah.
swords out of.
And I know
They're
there's
the same thing.
Well, no, it's like the
I don't know what you're talking about.
no, like you.
I
you
spent
dubbed
years
your-
thinking Gate of Babylon was unlimited.
No,
blade
you
works.
see, Gate of Babylon is an interdimensional treasury which
Yes.
holds.
Okay, now
multiple
this
and you
is
can
a
shoot the
tangent.
sword.
We can't go down.
Fuck you! And it shoots the swords out from the sky, and he has to stay stationary while he opens the Gate of Babylon. Unlimited Blade Works is a reality marble which changes the
Alright,
entire area to be inside of a pocket dimension where the swords already exist and can be manipulated at will.
Isn't really the difference unlimited blade works is unlimited and Gate of Babylon is not?
Sure, yeah, close enough.
Anyways, the point is like Thunderbolt Fantasy is a lot of fun because like it's these characters doing these very over the top kung fu things with these very over the top kung fu moves. Like it's like just dudes summoning swords. It's guys doing like crazy like fucking 1080 spin kicks through the air, but also they're puppets.
The guy
So
shoots
it's
an
like
arrow straight up, and they fight for 2 minutes. Then the arrow comes down.
The arrow comes down. Oh, that's pretty
Like,
good. Yeah, that's a
I
good one.
fought you to that spot.
Right, it's very good. Oh, like there's a section in one of the episodes where like so the archer of the group is like this like grim looking dude with like an eye patch, and he's known as the Sharp-Eyed Impaler, and like he's fighting this evil lady assassin, right? And they're like he's doing the shoot the arrow into the air trick, right? And like they're fighting, and like it's about to land on her, but then she trips and falls over, and so it barely avoids her. And
Right. He's
what
like,
Sharp-Eyed Impaler says is literally, "Oh, I shot that arrow assuming that you were a competent enough martial artist that you wouldn't just slip and fall on the ground. My bad. I apologize for overestimating your martial prowess." And it's
Right.
just like, it's so good. It's just the delivery is it's just having so much fun with what it's doing.
Yeah. All right. Well, you got 3 seasons to get through,
Yeah.
so there's
And also, like, just
a
real
lot of
quick,
Thunderbolt
like,
Fantasy.
I'm still not sure if it fits, but I do get excited every time we get the Sawano drop in this anime.
It's so good.
Like, the Sawano music starts playing in this fucking wuxia like puppet show. And it's just like the strangest thing in the world, but it works.
It's fun.
Why not? All right. Well, let's get back to our regularly scheduled anime talk. And let's talk about the Aquatope on White Sand.
Sure.
Um,
sure is.
I thought these episodes were pretty good. Particularly episode 5.
I
But
just kind of
Yeah.
just want to see show about the diner instead.
Kinda.
yeah, her like shady fortune teller
Fortune
aunt.
teller mom.
You know.
Yeah. But yeah, so this was, I mean, primarily focused on what's her name, the little girl Fuka, her past catching up with her, as
Yeah.
it was inevitably going to when you are 18 years old and apparently still in school and you run away. And and you were also a famous enough to be on
She
TV
was a
idol.
school idol. I mean, she can do whatever she wants.
So, first, I guess in the episode 4, we have her idol past catching up with her because the middle-aged man comes back that sucks on the booze ice pops comes back and recognizes her, and so that becomes a bit of a drama. And then, Gasp, her mom shows up in episode 5.
Yep.
Which I have to say I appreciate that they didn't make her mom the villain, because that would have been a very easy play.
Yeah, I like
Right.
that, like, Fuko's mom shows up and you're initially like, oh boy, here we go. Time for the really, like, mean, mean mom to show up and ruin everything because she's just such a jerk, right? But instead it's like,
No, it was very reasonable what she
Like,
what she did. I mean,
reasonable concerns.
Ran off here without telling me.
I mean, her daughter literally ran off to become an idol at, like, age 16, right? It's like, it's
Yeah.
it's fairly understandable that this mom would be like,
and like she said she's coming home and then didn't show up or call
Right.
or anything for like
It's
a
for, like,
week
2
or
days,
something.
yeah.
It's
like,
very easy to jump to the worst possible conclusion. That's it. I do like that the episode, like, I like that it was a little bit of that whole, that trope of like, the whole town chips in to like,
Hide
you
this
know,
girl.
keep to hide
Yes.
Fuka and keep her
But
mom
also that
occupied.
proves that she's in good hands with these weirdos in Okinawa, I guess.
yeah, just booze up this woman so she can't go look for her daughter.
yes, and her and of course we have to get in the Okinawan tourism plug. So her mom is charmed by the
Of course,
know,
By
yes,
the provincialism of the locals.
and the beauty of the island, and she's like, oh, I can see why she would want to stay here.
Yeah,
you know,
just have
These weird
Fuka's
old
mom look in the
ladies.
camera. You'd be like, sunny Okinawa, what a
and
place.
you could
to
come here too.
You just have to deal with the United States military base.
well,
Yeah, there's a look. I don't know if I want this show to get to it, but yeah, a weird lack of American military personnel in a show that's taking place in Okinawa. Like,
Yeah,
you think that
They're
would
not even going to noted Okinawan chain restaurant A&W Root Beer.
yes.
That show
But,
at Skate the Infinity.
show it is that show, as Zig said. It continues to just be that PA Works anime, and I think it's like. So here's the thing. Sorry, go
It's
ahead.
perfectly pleasant. It's just as shallow as a puddle.
Yeah.
You know, it's. I would not fault anybody for liking this. I would not fault anybody for loving this. I think that it is very relaxing. I think it's lovely to look at. I think it is very competent in all the ways that like basic storytelling and character work. It's just so uninspiring to me.
Yeah.
It's so paint by numbers.
Right.
And that sounds harsh, and maybe it is.
No, but I
but
totally get what you're coming from. It's because I would think even by the standard of PA Works, right? If we're comparing this to like a Sakura Quest or a Shirobako, it doesn't even necessarily hit those levels of like compelling in terms of like these women, being in these crises points of their careers, like.
Right. I mean, it's like we talk about constantly how this is mashing together all of PA Works' different types of shows, and maybe not picking a lane just kind of makes it a little more bland.
Yeah,
but
and also, so here's the thing: did you guys know this show is 2 cours?
Oh boy.
no, but I'm not super.
I'm not
surprised.
surprised,
Well,
yeah.
so that throws a weird wrench into all of this. Of like, I was going to
How
do
long
this
is
show
this going to
saying,
go then? Like
13 episodes. Yeah, you could do a show about like this story in 13 episodes.
Well, if it's 2
24,
cours, you have to include some greater form of tension
like,
then, right?
what is this show going to be doing? Like 12
Oh,
episodes later? Like, I don't.
This only further supports my theory of where they're going with the story.
Where are they going with the story, Gel?
That Fuka is going to become a local idol to save the aquarium.
man.
Oh
Sure.
God, you might be
Could-
right.
because-
Remember, there's also the supernatural stuff they keep teasing.
Yeah.
The local god or whatever, right?
Yeah,
there's
eating
that-
fish heads.
There's that stuff. I don't know how much they're actually going to do with
Even
that.
then, though, is that
but-
enough for 24 episodes? Like,
Well, so here's the thing. I think if it was one season, the logical midpoint then would be the end of August when the aquarium is supposed to close, right?
right.
So they would have to have something prepared to do after
Some
that.
Deus
After they
Ex
inevitably,
Machina to-
which I'm thinking is going to be her becoming a local idol to attract attention to
Right,
the
like, I suspect
aquarium.
You already know somebody who literally works at the tourist bureau, right?
Yeah, like
You could
I
set
do
that up.
suspect that you're kind of on the money here, Gel. Where like
Because that way Fuka gets to pursue her dream in conjunction
right,
with
and
Kukuru's
saves
dream.
the
And yes.
aquarium. Right, their 2 dreams intersect to become one. They keep holding hands and staring longingly into each other. The show seems to like doing
in
that
the
a
same
lot.
room.
Yeah, I haven't seen that much gently caressing your friend's face since Sound Euphonium, but yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious, I guess, because it's like I think for me, I think I'll probably watch all of it. But it's like when I initially thought this was 1 cour, I was like, I could see myself enjoying this for what it is. It's just
Yeah, I mean,
doubling the length. I'm very much just like
How long until
If this
Fuka
were-
pulls out the fiber wire to
what fights the vampire, the Okinawan ocean
Oh,
vampires.
she's gotta become the best idol in Okinawa.
oh, we're making
She'll
an odd
do
taxi
anything
reference.
to
Oh,
achieve
Odd
her
Taxi
dream.
my
reference.
bad. I thought you
Yeah.
were getting into Sirius the Jaeger.
Yeah, so for all the 5 people out there that got that reference, yes, but although we heard Odd Taxi sold at least 1,000 Blu-rays, right?
I mean, that's not an achievement to sniff at when like a complete series Blu-ray box is like $400.
Yeah, I think it was only like $250, which was pretty good.
Only $250
by comparison. But yeah, I think we've all kind of said we would not be watching the show if it was a better season, right? So it does make me curious.
Well, we will be watching
where
this next
where
season.
where we're gonna be at the end of this season, and what is next season looking like? Are we even going to be able to finish it if there's better shows next season?
Right.
And that will depend on where they're at by episode 12 or whatever when we hit the end of this season.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I mean, I'm enjoying it. It's a nice thing to watch when I'm eating dinner on Wednesday night or Thursday night or whenever it comes out. I think maybe Thursday, but
no, it is an undeniably pleasant show. It's just also, everything we see.
Like Zig said, there's nothing like inspiring or super creative about it. It's just like, well executed. In some ways, perhaps the opposite of the next show we're about to talk about.
Aquatope
now
spend 15 minutes talking about monkeys.
Yeah,
you thought we were going to have a big showdown on this, didn't you, Joe?
No, I think maybe the last episode. So like we're talking about Sonny Boy, and I think they've done the impossible. They've done the impossible and made a bad anime baseball episode.
I can't believe it. This might be like the worst baseball episode I've ever watched.
It's ANN's episode review talked about how like it will join the annals of great baseball episodes.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I mean, no baseball episode can be as bad as real life baseball. So
baseball is the ultimate.
If there's a cricket episode,
baseball is the ultimate fantasy sport because, like, as Dorohedoro and BNA and Samurai Champloo show, like, baseball is like possibly one of the best possible sports to put in an anime.
You explicitly have 30 kids with weird superpowers, and not one of them uses their superpowers for the baseball.
So this episode was so bad I did actually go back and watch the Dorohedoro baseball episode.
That's a good baseball episode
to cleanse my palate. But go
Johnson,
ahead,
enter speed mode.
So I really like weird arty shows that are like super surreal and stuff. I really liked the first couple of episodes of this show. I think they have perhaps lost me. And I still really want to like it, and there are still parts of it, even of this latest episode, that I did like. But the thing is, I like surrealism when, there has to be a thread. There has to be something you can pull to try and unravel. Even if it's just a glimmer of a story or a plot, a moral or a motive, all I need is one thing to grasp onto, and I'm not necessarily sure this show has that. In a sense, I think it might be like the most art house anime I've seen in forever, in the sense that it is almost a pure audiovisual experience.
What are you talking about, Zig? They were pretty clear with the moral with this whole baseball thing.
Yeah, they kind of almost get there, right? Like there's some lip service about how you should play the game to have fun, not to win, but like it's buried beneath so much dialogue and so little actually happening.
Yeah,
I
almost quit on that. I almost quit on that whole like 10 minutes long of the guy describing the monkeys playing baseball and not showing us anything on the screen.
Like that really bothered me because like we were talking about how Sonny Boy is trying to be this like audio visual experience, right? But then like it literally commits one of the worst possible sins you can in a visual medium of like just having a dude narrate a separate event to the viewer. And like I get that like thematically like it's supposed to like lean into this like absurdity of like, oh yeah, just everybody on the island knows about these baseball-playing monkeys that are invisible or whatever.
I think there is a time and place when the monologue can work, but I'm not sure this was it.
I just don't think it need to be that long, right?
Yeah.
Like if the joke is, he's like giving this really long story about this like deeply like I was I felt like I was in this place when I was trying to describe Getter lore earlier in this podcast, is how baseball guy feels in this episode trying to describe
the monkeys,
baseball monkey history.
And I think that monologue works if either if you have like a visual accompaniment, or if it's like if tonally you make it increasingly clear that he's kind of going crazier and crazier as it goes along, right? You know, if it becomes frenzied or something like that. But it's just so matter of fact, and it doesn't really go anywhere. Like, it doesn't even really work as a metaphor for anything. You know?
Right.
Yeah, I felt like that was so lacking in visual representation that I was actually starting to wonder if it was a production issue.
Impossible to say, right?
Because I mean, we can only speculate, but that was a lot of the episode of the guy just talking over a still pan over background scenery. Like,
I mean, episode 4 is a classic episode to outsource.
And then everyone says, "Damn, what a great monkey story, bro."
Yeah, and like
wow,
even if you're gonna
so
still
heartful and narratively important and morally challenging.
And the thing is, I'm frustrated because it's so silly. There's a great thing to be like, the idea of these monkeys are playing baseball and you can only see it if you use this flashlight is crazy. And like, there's a really, like, whether you play it for comedy or like just sheer bizarreness, there's a way to like really spin that idea, but they just kind of go nowhere with it.
I think it is a lot of that is for better or worse, just the sheer lack of visual flourish to accompany what, like, yes, in terms of like premise and like verbal description, is actually the kookiest premise we've seen so far on Sonny Boy, and there's no flair to support it.
And I think early in that episode, it is silly enough that I did get some humour out of it. You know, I was laughing for the first 7 or 8 minutes because it is so insane. But then it just sort of
keeps going,
carries on. Yeah.
So in that case,
well,
what do you guys think about the end of the episode then, where we suddenly have an implication of a new status quo?
I mean, it's impossible to say because there has been so little attempt to connect
little
the
status
threads
quo
of the
to begin
narrative.
with.
Right.
I mean, I agree. I was just curious what you guys felt about like the.
I didn't really feel much about it at all, to be honest.
Your big-titted glasses,
very
wearing,
voluptuous glasses sensei, just walking up on the beach.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
that's always the trick with surrealism is, like, if you go too deep, there's always a chance that nothing matters and there are no consequences because everything is mad and insane.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is, like, do you guys hope that maybe her introduction signifies like an overarching, plot thread that we can hold on to?
Well, she basically says playtime's over, right? At the end,
so that is the implication of a changing status quo.
Is there going to be like a more antagonistic element? That doesn't really make me any more or less excited because of what we've seen so far. Like, I don't know. Who knows what they're actually going to do with it?
I think the show needs to do more work before it can even have kind of a central plot. You know, it needs more character and, like, as strange as it seems to say, world building stuff before, like, there can actually be peril or, you know, an adventure. Because, you know, like, I get, like, the decision to not really go super deep on your characters is a deliberate stylistic choice, you know.
Right.
But it does mean that, again, we kind of have trouble caring too much about them, you know.
Yeah, I wanted to mention kind of in that neighborhood, because we talked a lot about episode 4 of the baseball episode.
Yeah.
But even in the episode previous to that, episode 3,
they get like 75% of the way there.
Yeah, so they set up this thing with the kids that are like freezing up and like they're trying to find them,
and it's a striking visual treatment.
Yeah, and so they eventually find them hiding behind these black curtains, and they're like people who are, you know, kind of lonely and isolated and everything, and they start bringing up what could be potentially a real interesting topic that you could inject into your weird surreal show.
These people have sequestered themselves away because that's how they feel most comfortable. You know,
and so rather than like going anywhere with that or finding some resolution or some way to help them, they just like bring in their magic superpower cartoon tools and sweep the curtains away, and it's like, oh, problem solved.
Right.
We never learn anything more about these people, or like what their emotional issues were, or
the counter argument to this I've heard is that, like, well, just, you know, just going, oh, what ails you, will fix that, problem solved is like a bit simplistic, and also it's a cliche. But the thing is, I think that would have been better than what we got, which was nothing, basically.
Yes, yeah, like they're literally like there was no dialogue or anything about it after that. It was just like, well, we're gonna sweep away the curtains. All right, everybody's back to normal.
And again, I think the visual is fairly striking, and that's what I mean when I say this thing is almost pure art house. You know, it doesn't seem to care for consequences or character. It's mostly about, you know, audio visual presentation and mood, and that's a choice, certainly, and I think under a lot of circumstances it's a choice I might be down with, but I need something. Like I said, I just need a bit to hang on to, and so far I don't think it's giving me that bit. You know, I think the first episode did, and I think the second episode was pretty good about that as well, because it was at least a story about a character. But the last two have kind of left me a bit cold.
I do kind of like the fake Amazon girl.
Oh yeah, I mean,
she's one of the only people with actual personality.
Yeah, she has a personality.
Yeah.
She actually she has a character to her, right? Like it just drives me nuts that these two girls keep hanging out with the just most fucking
God, I
sad
hate this guy so much. Oh my god.
Now
essentially
is hot teacher gonna single him out as?
I mean, I
definitely.
get with protagonists they were clearly going for kind of like dude out of his depth, but the problem is they've just drifted straight into guy who cares about nothing yet is important because he's the main character.
Yeah.
You know what had a good you know what had a good baseball episode that was like thematically core to the development of its character and like their internal conflict?
Yes, Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Fooly cooly, man. Swing the bat, Naota.
Yes, there was a lot. I was thinking of swinging the bat in this
about
episode.
The whole time watching this.
Just swing the bat already.
This was like a much worse version of that.
Yeah.
But that, I guess that was the idea they were going for, but they don't really, again, explore any of that. It just, continues to be sad sack. I mean, he swings the bat, I guess, but he misses and whatever. I don't know what that means.
It's just like there's no flair to it, right? There's nothing there's nothing interesting about his failure, right?
Put it this way, the show is fascinating and I will continue to watch it, but I'm not fascinated by the story. You know, I'm fascinated to see what the hell is going on in the meta sense. Right. But, like, I'm not on the edge of my seat about what's happening in the show itself.
That's like a journalistic interest in it
at
this
exactly.
point.
You know, I think, if nothing else, I'll certainly be curious to read any, like, post-mortem interviews with Shingo Natsume about this show. Like, very curious what he was thinking about when writing this.
For better or worse, this does seem to be like a fairly uncompromising version of an artistic vision. You know, I'm just not sure I'm down with the vision in question.
Perhaps a little compromise was in order.
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes limits force you to be more creative, right?
Get the good space dandy writer back here. What's her name?
Kimiko Ueno.
Yeah, who also wrote the only good episodes of
BNA.
Carol and Tuesday.
Oh yeah, remember that one. All right. Well, let's I guess wrap up with how did this end up at the end of our list? Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid S. I will give my final update on that, but
is it your final update?
No, I mean final at the end of the episode. I'm still watching it. So yeah, this was downright wholesome after the Miss Kobayashi gets a penis arc.
So is that resolved now?
Yes, that's out of the picture.
Okay.
So they focus on one of the side characters named Elma, who is like Toru's rival character, and I don't like her, but she's probably like the least problematic side character out of all of the side characters. So that was fine. I do feel like they're setting her up as okay. So when the show does decide to get slightly serious, they do pick into the like loneliness of the immortal character in a mortal world type of
True Eternity.
Sure, yes, that neighborhood, and they kind of occasionally remind Toru that while she very much loves Kobayashi now, Kobayashi is only going to be around in her life for like the blink of an eye in her lifespan, right? So I think they are setting up this other dragon lady as her permanent girlfriend after sometime in the future or something. which
Okay.
is weird. It's an interesting angle. Let's put it that way. Either that, or they're just wouldn't it be? They're just knowing this author. Maybe it's just wouldn't it be nice to have some extra queer baiting in this series? But so yeah, anyway, so that was fine. I mean, it was very, like I said, at this point, wholesome by their standards, because Elma basically conned her way into Kobayashi's workplace. Kobayashi is a programmer,
Right.
and since she's a dragon and way smarter than humans, she was able to figure out how to be a good programmer.
Of course, yep.
So it's mostly like some workplace comedy stuff, which was fine. And then the other episode focuses on the new dragon girl, and it turns into
the one who bestowed the penis.
Yes, but who is now living as Kobayashi and Toru's delinquent teenage daughter, basically. And so complete with Toru giving her a speech of like, well, if you're not going to go to school, you can't lay around here, go get a job. So she gets a job, and it turns into Dagashi Kashi, if you guys remember that anime.
Okay,
Wow,
all right.
that's
So she ends up she ends up being the magical girlfriend who walks into this old candy store that
of course.
with the kid who doesn't want to take over the candy store but is forced to work there, and it turns into a like standard romantic comedy thing where she shows up.
So would
into
that
his
be
life
a better show?
and gets a
than-
job there.
Would that be the better show at this point?
No.
Okay.
did she get them like crazy eyes?
No, she doesn't have the like super high drugged out eyes from Dagashi Kashi.
Too
But
bad.
it was fine, other than if you can just not look at her character design again. But like again,
What's wrong
there
with
was
her
nothing-
character design, Gel?
We've already been
Can't
down that
continue
road.
we can't litigate
So-
this every podcast.
Yeah. So anyway, it was fine. I like, again, the best version of the show is focused on Toru and Kobayashi and their family. But if you're gonna focus on side stories, I'd rather you do this than the horny 9-year-old girl or the other big booby dragon lady and her little boy literally named Shota. That
Truly, we are blessed. Blessed by anime.
So it wasn't bad. So it wasn't bad.
Great.
That's
What a season! What a season!
And what a great note to end this podcast on. So that's that's pretty much it at this point. I think we're fairly locked in on all these shows though at this point, right? Like I don't know if any of these
For better, for worse.
for better or worse.
Give it another month, and maybe the new Kamen Rider will appear.
It's about
when
dinosaurs.
When is that due?
End of beginning, middle of September.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we got a couple weeks. There's still I know we have the Fino I was gonna say
the
Pirate Princess
Yeah, there's that.
coming out.
Yeah,
but I
there's
think
that.
by the time the next episode comes out, that'll be out. And I feel like there was one other show
Oh,
that
was,
was
and
probably
I can't
bad.
remember
But
now.
Incidentally, I did mean to mention I did watch the first episode of the Goddesses Dormitory show, and I didn't write a first look for it because it would either require putting in way too much effort for a bad joke or just putting in no effort at all, and I figured neither of those were preferable.
that was the one with the little boy who gets the.
Is that the 8 out of 10 thing?
It's the
No,
that's
ped-
a different
Oh,
one.
the
That's
God.
a different one.
pedophile
no,
one,
I
right?
understand.
Yeah,
You're going to have to be
great.
way more specific, but yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes. Yeah, it's awful. Who could have guessed?
I think there was also the first episode of the Magia record came out since our last episode.
Yeah,
So there's been things, but that's like season 2 of that show, which I don't really care about.
I mean, there was an astonishing animation cut that was
yes,
making
there
the
was
rounds,
one really
but
cool
aside
looking
from that,
sequence, but I'm on the record as saying let Madoka rest. That story's over.
I mean, as somebody who has not seen the sequel movie or any of the media they have put out since that TV show ended, I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, this is season 2 of the anime based on the gacha game.
Oh,
We're in too
no.
deep at this point.
Synergy.
So But it did have a cool, nicely animated fight scene.
Yeah,
we'll give him that.
extremely
I
well
love that.
animated.
I love that after Urobuchi created Madoka, he was just like, "All right, I'm gonna go make guys in rubber suits fight each other," and then after that, puppets.
He started with the darkest and edgiest thing you could possibly do, and has gradually been getting less dark and edgy all across his career until literal puppets. So
I mean, those puppets fuck people up. I mean, let's not.
yeah,
Let's
but
be
they're
clear.
puppets.
Cut people's
Like,
heads off.
There's a threshold of how serious you can take.
I don't know. They
Yeah.
cut that puppet's head off.
Well,
did a real
my
good-
point was there still have been things trickling out.
Yeah.
but nothing good.
Maybe the Fina Pirate Princess thing might be okay. I'm gonna try to watch that actually on Toonami when that comes out.
Oh yeah.
Boy.
That's a Crunchyroll original, right?
I kind of it's weird
Yes,
because
it
like
is.
they're
It is
also
part of
also
their label for that.
but it is it's Production IG doing the actual like
Oh, okay.
work.
It is
So
an anime studio doing.
It's like
anime.
a legit anime. This isn't gonna be like that what was that awful CG thing that happened
XR.
the like really yes X-Arm. This is not gonna be an X-Arm situation. This is a legitimate anime that it feels like they're obviously if they're putting it on Toonami, like debuting it on Toonami, then they're pushing for Western audience, but it looks
Sure.
all right.
I mean, just by looking at it, that's obviously a good push it for Western audience. Just the subject material, like.
Whatever. Like I'm of the opinion that like there is plenty of room in the space between quote unquote
I'm
Western
not saying
cartoons
that's.
and anime.
I'm not saying
to-
that is necessarily a bad thing. Just
Yeah, yeah.
right. But that is the approach they seem to be taking. So it looks all right. So we'll see. The trailers look okay. So we'll check it out. All right. So that's gonna do it. Our regular housekeeping. Check us out at theglorioblog.com. Follow us on Twitter.
I was going to write about Sonny Boy, but I decided that
Not looking good.
it would just be very difficult to write anything about that show, one way or another.
Yeah. It'd be like, and then he talked about monkeys for 10 minutes and
Yeah.
nothing happened on screen.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So, yep. Check us out at theglorioblog.com. Follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher. You can also check us out on YouTube where we post the podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Tell us that we're wrong about these shows or whatever. You know how it works. And, tell your friends, tell your enemies. And we'll catch everybody next time.